I was happy that they did come out and unseal the documents on the search. And I think it was a step in the right direction, but I think we still have a lot of unanswered questions, and we're going to continue until people understand more.
Well, all I know about the actual materials is what was in that search warrant inventory, but from that alone, you can tell there was a serious risk to disclosure potentially of sources and methods, because some of those documents were marked top secret, sensitive, compartmented information.
All right, so the first guy there is Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan. The second guy is the Congressman from California, Adam Schifferbrains. Well, it only says this, but, and you can hear how he has his own conclusion, and that was a lot of what was happening this weekend, and that's what we're waking up to this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. The way this has been posited over the weekend, obviously, listen, battle lines have already been drawn prior to this whole thing happening, but we've seen it, I think, amplified over the weekend, and I want to go back to, we cannot stress enough how big of a deal that this was with what happened to Trump. And I'll go back to, you look to, and I know I keep using this example, but we look around to all of our lovely small rural communities here in mid-Missouri. I'm not calling anybody out, and I'm not saying it happens, but I'm not saying it doesn't happen either. Think of how many times, like at the breakfast counter, local sheriff sitting there, and a longtime friend, they played football together in high school back in the 70s, maybe in the 80s. And the guy goes to the elected sheriff in town and says, hey, man, I'm having a real problem with Stephanie Bell, who was right down the street from me. Do you think, you could rattle her cage a little bit? Could you do something? That's what's happening on a federal level. It happened to the former president of the United States, and that's why this is important. This is not just, hey, we're complaining about because they went after Trump. That is not it at all. It's because this potentially has real-life consequences on a local level.
Yeah, and I mean, it's scary what happened, and more importantly, it's going to affect, I believe, the 2020 election. And we've seen just recently, some polling come out about what people feel about the raid. And Trafalgar is saying 70% of people they asked, does the raid increase your motivation to vote in 2020 or 2022? And they said 70% says yes. And then also they're saying, what do you think motivated that raid? Was it an impartial justice system? Was it that? Or do you think it was Trump's political enemies? What motivated that raid? A majority, 47.9% of people said Trump's political enemies, and 39% say the impartial justice system. So not only is it going to increase folks' motivation to vote, a lot of those folks think this whole thing was motivated by Trump's political enemies, which I'm 100% in that case.
I'm raising my hand, too. And, Your Honor, I would like to present a couple of pieces of evidence this morning as proof that, this is just completely politically motivated. And I hate to be the guy that's going, well, what about Hunter Biden? What about Hillary Clinton? Those are all absolutely legitimate arguments. I think those, Your Honor, are legitimate pieces of evidence. That's why this is politically motivated. You mean to tell me all this other stuff going on? And Merrick Garland, again, we go back to March 8 years ago, however long ago it was, when Obama nominated him to the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and Mitch McConnell said, we ain't even going to hear that, man. He's bitter. He's bitter. This is, and I really believe this. This is his revenge. He is so angry. He is so mad. Here's his way to get revenge, and I believe that. And that's not just this, conservative talking point. I really believe he's angry.
Well, and I think they crossed a line, and I think, when Trump had the chance and, everyone was chanting, lock her up, and we knew about Hillary's emails, and, he had the chance to try to use the law enforcement system to go after his political enemies. And he, as wild as he is and as much as you can disagree with him, he did not cross that line. And I think people know he had the power. He could have done it. We had Michael Bakesh on the show, and he said, look, we went after Bill Clinton, took boxes and boxes and boxes of documents. We went to court, tried to say, hey, what's going on here? And the court said, well, the president can declassify information, and basically there's nothing we can do. And so in looking at what happened with Clinton, and, even Obama took some records, and then with Hillary's emails, and, there's just a line you don't cross, and they cross the line, and what we know is it's firing people up. People are mad.
And didn't Michelle Obama take out some dishes?
I mean, I don't know what's in her closet, but the point is nobody looked. Nobody was in her closet.
No. They know what's in Melania Trump's closet.
They sure do.
By the way, that is weird. That whole thing about, they spend more time. That's just creepy. I don't even know if I want to go there. There is Stephanie Bell. She's with, she's a lot of things.
Wow. Including sitting right next to you and within arm's reach. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. She is an attorney with Ellinger and Associates in Jefferson City. She is an older woman in the city of Ashland.
Older woman.
She is a mom, and she is a wife, and she is part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And I do want to let you know, here is the phone number. This might be a new phone number for some of us this morning. You can call. You can reach out and text. We're in the 573 area code, 874-9390, 874-9390. That is producer Hannah. She is a 22-year-old grad of Mizzou.
Good morning.
I want to cover this later. Mizzou. We might have very different takes on this. I saw this. My initial gut reaction over the weekend. We'll cover this more at 8:10, but Mizzou has this program where they're kind of encouraging students. Hey, we only have about 50 to 55,000 fans attending, for example, football games. What can we do to increase the revenue? Let's tell our students, hey, if you go out and sell tickets for us, man, we're going to give you a great commission on this. And as a 51-year-old dude, and I can be old school on some things, and I admit it.
Boomer.
It just struck me as kind of sleazy, but you and I, we might have different. I don't know why.
It's tapping into that generation, Hannah. It's in influencers, I think. And so those kids are used to, we just got, with sports, you can now use your name to make some money. But there are so many people in that generation who are out there doing influencing. And every time they recommend a product or something, they get a cut. They get a kickback. That's how a lot of them make their money. And I think it's tapping into what those folks already know.
Well, and honestly, I think it's kind of nice that the university is offering students a way to make some money.
Well, see, and that's the thing. So, but my initial reaction is, it's just sleazy. But then I think, well, good. So now the students can say, hey, we don't have to have the government to forgive student loans, right? Because now you have a revenue stream, maybe.
I was going to say, can we get the math on that? How much money can you make versus selling tickets versus how much they've raised the tuition? I don't know that you could make it back.
I sold 180,000 tickets for Mizzou's home opener, and my college debt is wiped out. 180,000 tickets in the stadium only seats 75,000. John Marsh is here. Brian Houseworthy is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Welcome to the show, 874-9390. And by the way, Congressman Billy Long, who, and I feel weird saying this because I want to say Congressman Billy Long is really tied in tight with Donald Trump, despite the fact
that Donald Trump endorsed Eric.
But he is. He enjoys a great relationship with Kellyanne Conway, who worked in the Trump administration. She worked on Congressman Billy Long, who reps Southwest Missouri. He is Billy Long. Let me give you an idea about Billy Long. He came up with the phrase Trump train, which everybody uses. He came up with that phrase. He's going to be joining us right about an hour from now, a little bit after 7 o'clock. And I do hope that you join us for that. And I do hope that you'll tell some of your friends, hey, you got to check out this Wake Up Mid-Missouri show. Congressman Billy Long. He's going to be giving us potentially some insight into what's unfolding at Mar-a-Lago this morning, because, again, the fallout of this continues to be what this means for us. And, Your Honor, I would like to offer more proof that, again, this is just another you and I, we probably already know this. We already know this. They're out to get Trump. These people still wet the bed at night because Trump was ever president. And we know that. Speaking of Kellyanne Conway, her husband, I would love to sit down with Kellyanne and George Conway one day.
Right?
How does this work, you guys? How do you make this? And I get it. When you're married, when you're in a relationship, you have inherent differences because you're human beings. And there's dudes and there's chicks and there's just some things that are different. And we're not going to agree on everything. But when you disagree on something as monumental as one of the greatest presidents, I think, in my political acumen, my history of political acumen, I just think it's strange. Anyhow, George Conway. Here's what others are saying about this whole raid.
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
You remember what George Conway said about the Russian collusion?
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
Remember what George Conway said about the insurrection?
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
And we're hearing that from everybody. It's not just George Conway. It's everything. Hey, you hear what Trump did, this latest thing?
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
We've been hearing this since he was president. We've probably been hearing some of this since before he was president. This is it. This is the big one, Steph. This is the one. Okay, we know we were talking about that, and that wasn't the one. But this is the one. Mm-hmm. This is the thing. This might be the one that gets him. Hannah? Have you ever heard the name Sam Donaldson?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
So Stephanie, who's in her 20s, Hannah, who is 22, and this 51-year-old chubby balding dude, Sam Donaldson, I think for years was like on one of the news programs on ABC. He was a journalist for ABC. Maybe been like Nightline or something. I don't know what it was. So, and again, I'd like to offer more proof of what we already know. But these folks, these progressives, these people on the left are making the case for us. Sam Donaldson goes on to CNN over the weekend, and he's likening what's happening with Trump. And he's talking about, Trump has all these things, this and this and this and that, and none of that's gotten him. He's likening it to Al Capone, saying, well, Al Capone was accused of doing all this stuff, and what did the government finally get Al Capone on? Tax stuff, minutia, tax stuff. But they got him into prison, and that's where he died. Sam Donaldson on CNN with Gian LaCosta.
If the Attorney General cannot bring himself because of lack of evidence or belief that the country is not ready to bring a president on charges of insurrection or obstruction of justice, how about violation of laws which keep this country safe?
How about Sam Donaldson said this? If we can't get him on this and we can't get him on that,
How about this other thing?
Oh my gosh.
Well, and people were criticizing Trump last week for taking the fifth, but like so many people have done really bad stuff and they go down for lying. And that's why, and people are saying don't talk to the feds because a lot of times, like you said, with Al Capone getting charged with taxes or tax evasion, I think here, that's what the overwhelming agreement was on Trump is the only thing you can do in talking to the feds is, get dinged for, saying something incorrect or lying to the feds. And a lot of people who've done or allegedly done some pretty bad stuff, that's been the charge they've gotten dinged on. And I think Trump was exactly right last week to take the fifth.
But
this could be the thing that really takes him down.
Welcome to the show. By the way, wanted you to know that you can, if you would like, you can watch the show. We do have a YouTube channel.
We do. You can find us on YouTube, Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert.
So you go to Wake Up Mid-Missouri on YouTube. You can pull us up and catch a glimpse of the show. Coming up 5 minutes from now, we do this every morning about 6:25. It's the Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. Some interesting insight from Stephanie, who's just been traveling, rubbing elbows with some of these big politicians. Coming back with the Daily DC Rundown. What are you going to lead off with today?
Well, Americans are less concerned about this than they
Are you planning to vote for Liz Cheney?
Can I cuss? Hell no.
Are you planning to support Liz Cheney?
Absolutely not.
What are your thoughts about Liz Cheney running for a fourth term?
Personally, I think she's had three too many. She's done us dirty.
How so?
God.
Says it all almost. I mean, there's a lot going on there, but I think the says it a lot. And those, by the way, registered Republicans in the state of Wyoming. And that's getting us into today's Daily D.C. Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
So both Wyoming and Alaska have primaries on Tuesday, and I think it's safe to say a lot of Missourians leading into the primary were hoping we could say goodbye to some certain people, and there are some folks in not only in Wyoming but around the nation who are hoping we'll say goodbye to Liz Cheney, and the polling is saying, I think, basically that.
And hopefully that holds true, because there's a lot of folks here like in the House of the House of Representatives there, she's got some pull, she's got some power. She is leading the January 6th committee, so this would be beneficial to all of us that she loses tomorrow's primary.
And at the same time, we might be welcoming back someone. We might be welcoming back Sarah Palin in Alaska. She's going to make a comeback. So she's on the ballot, and again, if she brings back Tina Fey to Saturday Night Live, I'll be very excited about that. So we'll have our eyes on those races. So Americans are less concerned about this than they were 3 years ago, and I find this really interesting. It's how climate change might impact them personally. So I'm not surprised. And I think, I was talking once to a local mayor in a big city here in Missouri, and I was like, yeah, we're just fighting about masks all the time. And he said, what a luxury it is that you can fight about masks because you're not fighting about shootings every night in your city. And you can concentrate on other issues when you've got the basic issues down. And so I think people before, when your economy's firing on all cylinders, you can be like, you know what? What can we do around the edges about climate? You can say, maybe we should drink out of paper straws. Never, right? Maybe we can talk about these things, but when your basic functions of your government are breaking down, when your economy's not firing on all cylinders, when your gas prices are above $4, you can't be worried about anything else. When you're worried about putting food on your table, when you're worried about finding someone to hire and keeping your business running, I'm not surprised people are like, what about climate change? I'm worried about our economy.
Yeah, and all these, you think about the families around here, we've seen local food banks here in mid-Missouri and kind of what they've been doing, because so many folks are needing help, and you can call it, well, it's not inflation, it's not reduction, and do I care about is climate change? I don't care. I just want to put some gas in my car, man. Coming up, a couple of big things happening at city council meetings tonight in Jefferson City and in Columbia. And something really crazy happened Saturday during the swearing in of one local city council member. That's coming up about 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
At the low end in our survey, Baton Rouge is 338. At the high end of San Francisco Bay Area, 536. And between those, Miami is 379, Denver 404, Philadelphia 437, and Chicago 482.
Guess what those cities with the very high gas prices have in common? Guess who they are run by?
Democrats.
Yeah. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. My name is Branden Rathert. Stephanie Bell is here.
Good morning.
There is producer Hannah. Brian Housewood, John Marsh here. By the way, we look at gas prices here in Missouri, and again, I love that because producer Hannah is always saying, because gas prices, they have been going down.
It's like when I come home from Target and I'm like, but it was on sale, honey. It was on sale. I saved us money.
You look at the gas prices since the tragic events of January the 20th, 2021, and they are still way above what they were then. So you see this steady progression. You heard, by the way, Trilby Lindbergh, she's an expert on gas. You look at some of those cities where we have the highest gas prices in America, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Chicago. What do they have in common? Stephanie pointed out they are run by Democrats. What's happened with gas prices since the events of January the 20th, 2021? They have gone sky high. You know who has some of the lowest gas prices as a state in the nation?
Missouri?
Yeah. Who's the governor of Missouri? A Republican. And I know, well, you know, the president, he's not responsible for the gas prices, the governor. You can't deny the commonalities where we see these high gas prices. Right now, Missouri enjoying some of the lowest gas prices in the nation. Some of our counties right here, though, however, like Boone County and other surrounding counties. Missouri, one of the lowest in the nation, but some of the highest prices in Missouri. Right here where we live. Welcome in. Something we can do for you. By the way, for some of us, kind of a new phone number, 573-874-9390. So it's in the 573 area code, 874-9390. Questions, comments on something we say. And I know some folks like to come out and they'll flat out ask, what do you think about this? What is your opinion on this? And I appreciate shows that do that, but that's not always what we do here because it's kind of this family vibe. It's kind of like we're hanging out and we're having a couple of drinks at happy hour or coffee, and we're all just chatting. And when we say we all, that's not just Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and producer Hannah and Stephanie and myself. It's you, too. It's you. And you can always be part of the conversation, 874-9390. So even if we're not flat out asking you a question, it's like if you're hanging out with your friends, do you wait until a friend asks you a question to respond?
No, and my friends will tell you that I'm bad about interrupting, and I'm working on it, and I apologize for that. But yeah, no, when I have a thought in my head, it usually just comes right out of it.
Yeah, and appreciate the honesty, by the way. Something to be said. That is a strength, I think, on a personal level for anybody to be able to say, "Hey, you know, here's one of my things." One of my things is, well, I got a lot of things. Too many to list right now. Let's move forward. And by the way, you can watch us on the YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, and I get it, man, it's not always like, hey, it's not the most convenient thing to do. I understand, but you can still, you go and watch, pull up. One of the things that we're finding, especially as all these kids here in mid-Missouri get ready to go back to school, people pop us up on the smart TVs in the morning. And so the kids and everybody running around the house, they can hear on the smart TV the local news and how it affects us.
Speaking of kids going back to school, last year around this time, there was a ramen noodle shortage in Columbia. Have you witnessed anything like that? Are you getting nervous about your noodles?
Did I think the Mizzou students are coming back? Lincoln University students, I think, are close to getting coming back. And you know this because you go to the grocery stores, whether you're going to Walmart or Moser's, and there ain't no ramen noodles anywhere. That's how we know the college kids are back. Before we move forward, a couple of important things, because I've always felt weird about having to pay for a place to park in Jefferson City. I mean, you know, paying for a parking spot, it just strikes me as kind of an odd thing. Jefferson City going to be covering this in their council meeting tonight, and then something happened in the city of Columbia as it relates to their city council. Something, and according to our news director Brian Hausworth, something he's never seen before. We're going to cover that. But right now,
downtown parking in Jefferson City is kind of like roller carts in Columbia. It's like an evergreen issue that, there's not a good consensus on it. And it's always an issue. It's always at the top of the conversation. I'm glad they're taking time to discuss it, but finding consensus on that's going to be difficult.
That'll be fun. 874-9390. Jeremy, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What can we do for you?
Good morning. You're just talking about gas prices there a few minutes ago. And I'm a contractor based out of Kansas City, working in Columbia. And it's consistently been 60 to 80 cents difference between Blue Springs, Green Valley, and Columbia as far as gas prices.
Jeremy, I hear you, brother. I go to St. Louis, and I'm like, man, so when I'm leaving and I get up there, I get to Fulton, I'm like, oh, man, gas is a lot cheaper in Fulton than in some of these other places. And then I get to Montgomery City, I'm like, man, look how cheap it is. It's crazy, the disparity we see in prices, even just right here where we live, man.
Well, and you ask certain people in the industry, and not pointing fingers or necessarily calling anybody out, but it is a Phillips 66 owned substation in Ashland that controls the fuel costs for this area, is what I've been told, and that those costs out of that substation in particular are more expensive than anywhere else, even though it's coming out of the same petroleum line.
Yeah,
in Kansas City and St. Louis.
Yeah, and I hear a bunch of different things too. Can't confirm any of that stuff. But I get it, because it's like, do all of in mid-Missouri where we have higher gas prices, and I'm not saying this, but I do wonder sometimes, are all these people, do they get together and have a meeting every morning and say, hey, let's charge this, and if we all charge it across the board, it won't look suspicious. Jeremy, welcome into mid-Missouri. We hope you enjoy your time here while you're visiting from Kansas City. We appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. 874-9390. 874-9390. Tonight, Jefferson City Council, they're going to be meeting parking. And this is specific areas along Capitol Avenue. I just always kind of think it's weird to have to pay for parking. But if you go to Jefferson City, you go to Columbia, you pay for parking, whether it's in a garage or whether it's on the street. I'm claiming this little part of the street, and I got to pay for it. But it's always been an issue. Is it the parking, or is it the prices that's the bigger issue, or C, all of the above?
The prices are low already, fairly low, and I think that's part of the bill, is they might be increasing prices. In downtown proper, I mean, it's kind of a mix between where do your workers park and where do the visitors park, because right now you can park on High Street but for free, but then, only for a certain time period. I think right now it's 90 minutes in most locations, and that's to turn people over. For stores, restaurants, they want to get people in and out, but then they also have employees that need an affordable place to park. And so that tension sometimes creates some issues. And then as you increase, for example, your apartment living downtown, those people need longer term places to park. And as, downtown grows, so they're looking at, Capitol Avenue, trying to figure out how to address the parking situation there. One of the most exciting things I saw in here, which they said is an idea, but it's not addressed in the current parking bill, is an intention to get a program where you could pay by app. And I think that's great, because I used my Aldi quarter in the meter because I never have change. And last week I was like, oh no, I have to have a quarter to put in this meter. And I was digging around in my car, and I gave up my Aldi quarter that sits in my car to pay. And so I think that would be really nice. They are looking at increasing the enforcement fees. Jefferson City downtown around the Capitol has a lot of visitors. And so you see a lot of hate on social media for the meter maids and for as many. But, if you are in Jefferson City, and I would encourage you to do this, and you are there a lot, they have lots where you can buy a monthly tag. That's what I do every day. And so if you need regular parking, there's a solution other than just trying to feed the meter.
I used to get stuck outside of Aldi and realize I don't have a quarter. All of a sudden, I become a panhandler. I'm like out in front of Aldi, like somebody you'd see at 63 and 70. Hey, man, got a quarter? Got a quarter?
I mean, you've already got the barefoot part down.
874-9390. Off the text, Daniel says, how about paying to park at work? That sucks. I feel I got to go to work and I get a parking spot and I have to pay to park.
As an employer, should it be your responsibility to make sure that your employees have parking?
Yeah, I mean, we pay monthly for tags for our workers. Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of crappy if you're an employer and you expect your employees to show up to work, but you don't have a place for them to park.
But think about how expensive it can be. I mean, like, for example, I interned in the state capitol. I mean, they can't afford to pay, it's your tax dollars, I guess. For a lot of folks in Jeff City, those positions are funded by taxpayers. And so, and most of the state lots have plenty of parking for state employees. But there are situations, restaurants and other things that, those people just have to find a place to park, and there are options.
So we don't have paid time off and we don't have a retirement plan, but we'll pay for your parking. 874-9390. Jerry, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Brandon. I'm just calling about the paying for parking. I worked for MU off and on for 9 years, and I had to pay for my parking there. And if you were in a gravel lot, it was $20. If you were in a parking garage, I think it was $25 or $30. And I also, the last 5 years I was there, I worked over by the Hearn Center. And on the weekends, I couldn't use my parking spot if there was a game that I wanted to go to. It was off limits.
Wow. That's
yeah.
Hey, let me ask you this really quick, because one of the things we are going to be covering later this morning, one of the laborers unions, they feel like they're getting some of their time off benefits slashed. It seems to me almost like it's a wash, if not better, but there's confusion over PTO compared to vacation time, personal time, sick leave, personal leave. Have you seen any of that?
No.
All right. It's interesting. Go ahead.
I've been gone from MU for 10 years.
Amen. Jerry, thank you for being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I went through that as a student there.
Mm-hmm.
So my freshman year, I had to pay to park at the Hearn Center. And it's not cheap, even though it's not that great of parking. Like, you're far away from the rest of campus. And, yeah, you'd get an email, a couple days before game day saying, hey, if your car is in the parking lot after this time on this day, we're going to tow you. So we had to find different parking, even though we paid a bunch of money to park at the Hearn Center. We would have to move our car on a weekly basis.
Man, and I love this because, and by the way, City of Columbia, they're talking about raising water rates and all this, and everybody, and they want to raise rates on this, and this city wants to raise that, and they're raising the prices on groceries. Have you then, is your work paying you more money? Everybody wants more money from you, but I ain't getting no more money. Are you getting any more money? 874-9390, 874-9390. Yesterday, ABC's Jonathan Karl asking Karine Jean-Pierre, she's the White House press secretary, asking her about this Inflation Reduction Act. You know what the Inflation Reduction Act doesn't do? Doesn't reduce inflation. Check out his question.
But the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, said that there would be a negligible impact on inflation this year and barely impact inflation at all next year. I mean, isn't it almost Orwellian? How can you call it Inflation Reduction Act?
Isn't it almost Orwellian? And she initially says no, but how did she finish answering the question? We're going to do that for you coming up 5 minutes from now on Wake Up. We're going to
But what I will say is the one regret I have is that the public discourse these days is so coarse, not only between the public and their elected representatives, but also on the dais itself, within the city council.
So that is, well, he's gone now. I was going to say outgoing Carl Scala. He was a longtime city councilman in the city of Columbia, 12 years, about as woke as they got. Do appreciate his service to community, but he was about as woke as they got. Got voted out in what was a remarkable vote. Now, in some of our smaller burgs, like, let's say, Pierpont in Boone County, Holt Summit over the years, occasionally in some of these smaller places, you'll see a tie vote. But we've never really have seen anything like we saw in the city of Columbia back in April.
Yeah, I mean, when the vote total, when there's 150 votes cast, it's easy to tie. But here, we had two candidates tie on the nose at 1,602 votes. It's really, really rare to tie at in excess of 3,000.
So they had a do-over, like in kickball in the second grade.
Well, according to state law, there was the option that they could draw lots, draw straws, flip a coin. You can, do it different ways. That's been done in some of these smaller races. In fact, when I was in Ashland and had just relocated, it was a school board race, I think, that had tied, and they drew straws. If the candidates decline to draw straws, then there is a do-over. And actually, we heard from the clerk that if it ties again, guess what? We do it over again. And so it was interesting, though, that we waited. I mean, you don't want to have a special election, but really, Carl Scala was able to serve from April all the way to August till we got the do-over.
So he got replaced by somebody who is this guy, maybe more woke than him. But here's the thing. In my opinion, in my dealings with both of these folks, more reasonable than Carl Scala. All right, let's go back to, by the way, this is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
Hello, producer Hannah.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert. Phone number is 573-874-9390. And you can call or text. We do a pretty good job, we think, of if you text us, we will respond, usually by, sometime before the end of the day. ABC's John Carl asking White House Press Secretary Jean-Pierre if calling this Inflation Reduction Act was Orwellian, because the Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan office, says this isn't really going to reduce inflation.
Next year, I mean, isn't it almost Orwellian? How can you call it Inflation Reduction Act when the nonpartisan experts say it's not going to?
So I appreciate that. I appreciate the question. We've actually addressed this, the CBO. It was the top line number. There's more.
All right. She didn't. She heaped a bunch of BS is what she did.
I really want someone to put a dessert on their menu and call it the waistline reduction pie. Please.
Coming up 7:10, Congressman Billy Long ran unsuccessfully for U.S. Senate Rep Southwest Missouri. He's got some special insight into what's unfolding at Mar-a-Lago. You got to hear what he's saying. That's coming up at 7:10 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning.
All right, going to buy the Stanley Cup here. Hey, and who get 25? Would you get $30,000? How about a 30? 35, 40. You want to buy 45, 45, 50. How about a $50,000? Now 5 to buy 60. Now 5, 65. Get that satisfied look off your face. You're out. 65, 70. I have sold at $65,000.
That is Congressman Billy Long. Of course, ran for Senate, did not succeed in that campaign. He reps Southwest Missouri. He is an auctioneer. He does all kinds of stuff, and it's interesting. So he would come on to Wake Up Mid-Missouri a lot, and after he lost the race, we had people who started texting the show. By the way, you can reach out and text us, 573-874-9390, and we had several people they all said this one thing about Billy. Like, hey,
I really like him. He's hilarious. He's a great guest. Can we still talk to him? And, every time he came on the show, we ended up in, national news media.
True story. By the way, that is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here. We have John Marsh, Brian Houseworth. My name is Branden Rathert. We want to welcome you into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. You can reach out. You can call or text 874-9390, and that is in the 573 area code. True story. By the way, Billy Long is going to be joining us here shortly. Despite the fact that he did not get Trump's endorsement in the Senate race, he's tied in pretty tightly to Trump.
He says he invented the hashtag Trump train. And he's really good. He's got so many of those he should write advertisements or slogans for companies because he's so clever.
Ask him, Billy, so when you're not a lawmaker anymore, what are you going to do? Well, I write phrases for a bumper sticker company.
You can make a lot of money with those slogans, and he's really good at it.
So, true story with Congressman Billy Long. He got us, in effect, onto the cover of a Rolling Stone. Well, we didn't get on the cover, but we got into a Rolling Stone. And here was why. It was something that somebody, and I don't know who on earth ever got a hold of it, but somebody got something in a conversation that he had right here in the heartland of Missouri, something he said on the show. Some national news outlet listening to the show got a hold of the interview, and they posited just like a 30 or 45 second clip.
It was edited, by the way.
And it was edited.
That was the issue.
And the number of news outlets that picked up this story here in little old Mid-Missouri, this little old Wake Up Mid-Missouri show. We were in Vogue magazine. We were in Rolling Stone.
Vanity Fair.
Huffington
Post, everywhere. And here's the thing, and I think this is a valuable lesson. So we're saying that not to brag, like, oh, look, but we say that to show you that it's honesty. Because a lot of people say, oh, the media is dishonest and this and that. But we like here on this show, I think one of the things that you may already know, or one of the things you'll learn, we like to give specific examples of when especially the national news outlets lied, and that was one of those examples. They lied. But we want to bring in Congressman Billy Long right now. Thank you for your time, and thanks for getting us into the Rolling Stone magazine. It's good to have you here. I want to ask you, obviously, all this stuff, it's been interesting to watch how the national news outlets are framing this story with Trump. We know that you are tight with the Trump campaign. Kellyanne Conway worked on your campaign. What do you think is unfolding at Mar-a-Lago? What is going through Trump's mind? What is happening there this morning?
I haven't spoken to the president since this unbelievable raid the other day, but do you all remember the name Sandy Berger?
Yeah, yes. Man, you're talking politics from the 80s.
90s.
Yeah, 90s, that was not a menu item at McDonald's, but Sandy Berger put classified documents in his underwear, stuffed them down in his underwear, and tried to exit with them, or did exit with them, and he got just a slap on. Tried to steal classified documents, and I don't remember what his title was in the Clinton administration right now, but that's the difference in that and this. One was a Democrat, one is a Republican, and when they came in, the jackbooted Army came in to Mar-a-Lago, demanded that they turn off the security cameras, which thank goodness they didn't, made sure everyone exited, wouldn't let any of Trump's people watch what they were doing. Now, what would keep them from planting evidence or anything else? But all I can tell you, Brandon, is every time Trump has said it's a hoax, whether it was Russia, it's a hoax, whether it's collusion, it's a hoax, the Steele dossier tapes, whatever, it has been a hoax. And he says that this whole thing is a hoax. They were cooperating with the FBI. And so we'll see what happens. But it just shows you that the whole of government, the vast majority of the people that I work around and have coffee around and eat in the same restaurants they're eating in Washington, D.C., are 99.9% liberal Democrats, whatever government agency they work for.
Congressman Billy Long, Rep. Southwest Missouri, is joining us on the show. He is tied in pretty tightly with Trump. And to your point, now this is Kellyanne Conway, worked very hard on your Senate campaign. She is married to George Conway.
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
So this is George Conway. Just the other day, this could be the thing. This raid at Mar-a-Lago.
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
And again, to your point, Billy, the Russian collusion thing, George Conway, you know what he said back then?
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
George Conway following with his insurrection stuff in these January 6th committee hearings, George Conway, and what he said.
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
And the point is, that's what everybody's, this could be the thing. This could be the thing. And it's got to be mind-boggling, especially when you're tied into it, the people you're having breakfast and coffee with in D.C. in those inner circles. It's just got to be mind-boggling, man.
Well, it is, and it just shows that they are so petrified. They know that the United States public is fed up. They made a mistake with Biden. They want their vote back. They want to redo. They want Trump back in the White House. And they are, I mean, who was it the other day? Not George Elias, but Mark Elias, the famed Democrat lawyer that goes in and steals elections after the fact, that stole the election from for Al Franken from Norm Coleman up in Minnesota several years ago, an 8-month stealing of that election. But Mark Elias said it out loud the other day. He said, this is the way that you keep Trump from running again. This is, you come up with one of these trumped-up charges like this, that if he's found guilty, he cannot run again. And he said, that's our play. That's the Democrats' game plan. He said that out loud. So that's exactly what this is about. They know that if Trump goes on the ballot, he wins the primary going away, and he wins the general election. And but this might be the thing that brings him down, according to George Conway, who, by the way, I've never met, never been in the same room with him. I've known Kellyanne for years. We get along great. She worked on my campaign tirelessly. And but George never met, thankfully. But he's just a typical never Trumper, like John Kasich. We had some people here in Springfield after Trump had won the Missouri primary that brought John Kasich in for an event because they were convinced that he was still could win. He's a huge never Trumper. All these folks, Bill Kristol, a huge never Trumper. All the folks that used to work for him, McCain, that are now talking heads from MSNBC, big never Trumpers. And so that's what you're dealing with here. So I can't imagine. He'd been working with Trump's lawyers on this, whatever documents they wanted, and he can declassify just about anything that he wants to. And if he had declassified all that, I'm not sure what the issue is. But I saw the other day someone tweeted out a set of golf clubs from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and P for pitching wedge, and said, we found the nuclear code here at Mar-a-Lago.
This might be the thing that finally takes Trump down. Congressman Billy Long, Rep. Southwest Missouri, joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Brandon, thanks so much. Congressman, we appreciate your time. You've always joined us live on interviews, and we do appreciate that. All eyes in Washington right now are on the state of Wyoming. Liz Cheney is on the ballot. Congresswoman Liz Cheney tomorrow. Her father, former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney, taped a commercial. I've watched it. I'm sure you have as well. He's wearing a cowboy hat. He looks directly into the camera, and he says this. He says, Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, is the greatest threat to our republic. He also says he's a coward. He calls the former president a coward, and he says Mr. Trump knows that he lost that election. Two-part question. A, your reaction to that scathing ad, and B, can Liz Cheney win tomorrow or will she lose?
On the Dick Cheney part, let's start with that. There was an event that my wife, well, I'll tie this into the second part of your question, but my wife and oldest daughter, my wife is from Cheyenne, Wyoming, grew up out there. Her father's buried out there. They went out a couple of weeks ago, the two of them, on a driving trip. It was right before the election, so I couldn't go, but they drove 3,000 miles, and they said all the ranches, and my wife's folks' family used to have ranches, but anyway, all the ranches they went by, they saw one Liz Cheney sign in all the ranches, and everything else was Harriet Hageman, who my wife's grandmother used to teach her father was a school teacher, taught Harriet Hageman father, who is going to be the next congresswoman from the state of Wyoming. So that answers the second part of your question. The first part of your question on Cheney, there was an event for Liz Cheney at Dick Cheney's house in Jackson Hole a few years ago, and Kellyanne Conway was there, and Dick comes over and settles up to Kellyanne and says, man, I would really, really appreciate if we could get a pardon for Scooter Libby. Scooter used to be Dick's chief of staff. And guess who would not give him a pardon, not give Scooter Libby a pardon? George W. Bush. So he was groveling. He was on bended knee saying, please, please, he's a good guy. We really need to get Trump to pardon him. Trump pardoned him. And so this is the thanks that Trump gets from Dick Cheney. So I don't have any use for any of them. I don't have any use for any of the anti-Trumpers, the never-Trumpers, and I'm going to do everything I can to – first thing I'm going to do is get the two new guys, Eric Burleson and Mark Alford, off to good running starts in D.C. I'm working with both of them closely, trying to say, hey, here's what orientation's like, here's this. Second thing I'm going to do is work hard to see that Trump gets back in the White House.
All right, Congressman Billy Long, we're appreciative of your time. As always, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, keep us posted on anything you hear there as it relates to the Trump camp, man, okay?
You bet I will. You bet I will. And I sent you all a tweet earlier about Brian Seitz, Representative Area 156 down here in Branson, and his wife Valerie is going in today to get a chemo port installed for a very aggressive form of breast cancer. And Brian has asked everyone to pray for Valerie, so I put that up on my Twitter feed as my pinned tweet. So if everyone can keep Valerie Seitz and Brian in your thoughts and prayers, they're going to go through some very, very rough times here. I'd appreciate it.
Congressman Billy Long on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And again, we go in. If you're new to the show, here's why this matters to you. Talk about local. These aren't just conservative talking points on a national level. Oh, the FBI went after Trump again because a lot of these progressives still pee the bed at night because they can't believe that Trump was president. Think about this, man. If you're like in Howard County, Callaway County, Cole County, maybe some more of these rural areas, and I can't stress this enough in my opinion, this can happen to you where you live. Somebody gets mad at you. I could go and sit with the sheriff at the breakfast counter, like someone having a cup of coffee, like the congressman was just talking about. Say, man, Stephanie Bell is getting on my nerves, and you and I played some high school football together, man. Why don't you go rattle her cage a little bit? These things are real. And that's why we should, and I don't want to say we should be worried. I don't ever want to tell you how you should feel, but here in Mid-Missouri, these are things that we really need to be thinking about. This is a real thing. It's not just a talking point.
And Democrats are throwing fits, and when they don't get their way, they try to change our fundamental institutions. So they're not getting their way with the courts, and they're crossing these lines. They're saying, you know what, we can't, elect a president to get the justices in that we want. So what we're going to do, we're going to pack the courts. We're going to add people to the courts. And here, they're crossing this line, and they're saying, there's these independent checks, the way these things are supposed to work. And they said, you know what, we're going to use the FBI and the DOJ for political purposes, a line Trump never crossed, I don't think, especially with respect to Hillary Clinton. And that's what's really scary is fundamentally changing the way these institutions work.
Coming up about 5 minutes from now, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. Something we do every morning, 7:25. It's just things people are talking about here in town. What do you got for us this morning?
Well, Brandon, there's a new dating app coming out next month that I think you might be interested in.
Good morning, 725-ish, which means it's
7:27.
time for What's Hot with Hannah. One of the things that you will learn is, we're not always completely rigid, which is an excuse for saying sometimes we run behind, but we do What's Hot with Hannah every morning, 725-ish, and big emphasis on the ish. And we just kind of talk about some of the big things people are talking about at work and on social media, and maybe at, when you get together at happy hour at the Buffalo Wild Wings after work.
Now, Brandon, I think you might be interested in what we have here, which is a new dating app, because I know that you like to frequent those, right?
That is not an accurate statement.
Anyways, there's a new dating app coming out next month, and it's called... Oh my gosh, where did it go? I'm pulling a Rathert, a Joe Jr. right now. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's for young conservatives, and it is called... What the heck?
Is it True Social Parlor?
It is not, but it's along the same lines. And basically on this app, there's only 2 gender choices when you create your profile. And basically you have to be invited by another member on the app to even create a profile. So it seems kind of exclusive.
That was like the original Facebook. You had to have a university address and be invited.
It's called The Right Stuff. And it's basically an app only for conservatives looking to find love.
I like it.
So Brandon, I'm just throwing it out there.
Is that a deal breaker for you, Brandon? Would you ever date a lib?
It depends on how hot she was.
There it is.
There's some allowances there, right? Coming up, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe is here. How the drought and it's affecting the agriculture industry and how this affects us and how it affects you. That's 5 minutes from now.
basically we're going to be milling off the asphalt, and once that work's complete, we'll be underneath there making deck repairs and then putting a new concrete wearing surface on top of the bridge deck.
That's Kristen Monk, an engineer for the MoDOT Central District, chatting with KRCG, talking about construction. Well, not construction, but she didn't say construction, but basically it's going to be a pain in the you-know-what over the next couple of days. Brian Hounsworth, news director for the Zimmer Radio Group. What is happening in that area?
Yeah, about 10,000 vehicles, Brandon, use that ramp a day, and that is the ramp from 63 that essentially spills out onto 54 right by the soccer fields and the airport. It's part of the project to upgrade the surface, and they're moving the project up because of the heavy rain. It's going to start tonight, and you're going to have to go all the way to Holt Summit, then come back. So if you're driving to Jeff City, basically for the next 2 weeks starting tonight, give yourself at least an extra 15 minutes. That's not to mention if you get stuck in traffic, it's going to take some time. Especially you, Stephanie Bell.
That is not what I wanted to hear on a Monday morning, Brian.
I'm sorry.
Stephanie Bell, an attorney with Ellinger and Associates. She's an older woman in the city of Ashland. She is,
and my office is conveniently located in downtown Jefferson City. So if I'm late to work, if you call me at 9:30. It might take me 15 more minutes.
Exactly.
Brian Hounsworth, news director for the Zimmer Radio Network.
It's good to see you.
John Marsh kind of poking in and out, too. That's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. Appreciate you being here. I'm reminded we were talking really today, and this affects us here in Missouri. Liz Cheney, very likely. I was reading an article, and this is not a national story. One of the things you might learn about us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, we like to go to the local sources for news. We're not relying on Fox, USA Today, or CNN. Go to local sources. So we pulled up the Tribune, not the Jefferson City Tribune. This is from Casper, Wyoming, and they've the newspaper there. So this isn't like Fox polling. This isn't CNN polling. This is a newspaper that is in Wyoming. It's a Star Tribune based in
very good newspaper. Local paper up there.
They surveyed 1,100 registered Wyoming voters, and apparently Liz Cheney is she's going to get. I won't say she won't get, but she's not going to get broadsided tomorrow because she knows it's coming. But she is going to lose bigly, and that's important for us here in Missouri, because look at Liz Cheney and her work, for example, on the January 6th committee, along with the guy who's running for Senate as an independent, John F. Wood, that guy. So they've been working together. This guy's running for Senate here in the state of Missouri as an independent. They've been working together. And so this is important for us that she get out of there, and tomorrow she's going to be primaried out in incumbent.
Then we might be stuck with her if she's not. She's going to come in and stump for John Wood, probably. Great.
So it reminds me, we were getting some audio from people on the street in Wyoming and talking about the likelihood of whether or not they would support Liz Cheney, and most of them said no. But we love this. At the end of this,
Done us dirty.
How so?
Oh, God.
Oh God, that woman. Oh God. That makes me think of what's happening at 63 and 54 here over the next few days. Oh, God. We get it. Welcome into the show. I want to bring in now Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. Mr. Kehoe, welcome into the show. Some important things we kind of want to get to. We're busy here. Let's start kind of with some of this agriculture stuff. We look at some of our communities in Callaway County and Howard County and Cole County and Osage County. We look at the agriculture that takes place. We look at the farmers. And they're in a bad way since the events of January the 20th of 2021, since Joe Biden became president. Our local ag folks are hurting. And now we've got some drought issues and all of this heading into the Sedalia, to the state fair in Sedalia. Can you offer us something positive for our local farmers?
Well, first of all, Brandon, congratulations on your expanded show. I've known you and Stephanie. I've known Brian Hounsworth since I was a kid. So John Marsh is a lot older than me, so I can't
John's laughing too.
But we appreciate the Mid-Missouri presence, and covering Columbia and Jefferson City means a lot. There's a lot of good news on the agricultural horizon, and none of it is to credit the federal government. It's Missouri's farmers and ranchers at their best. Agriculture is about dealing with things you can't predict, like a drought, like a flood, like conditions that you can't manage. The federal government doesn't help us out with any of that. The Biden administration has not been a friend to farmers so far in his 2 years in office. But farm families figure out how to adapt. They figure out how to work through that. And our state fair kicked off last Thursday. It goes for another week in Sedalia. We had record attendance on Saturday. Kids are there showing their animals. People are there learning about Missouri agriculture. I've been there every day since the fair started. There's a great amount of excitement and enthusiasm in folks coming to the state fair to learn more about Missouri agriculture. It's our number one industry. Last year, 2021, $93.7 billion impact on our state's economy. So that's something we want to pay attention to. Biggest thing we want government to do is get out of the way of family farmers. Let them figure it out. They're pretty smart, and they know how to overcome a lot of adversity.
Lieutenant Governor Kehoe joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and I appreciate you talking about that because that's a number we throw out a lot, almost approaching $100 billion is the effect here in Missouri. And I want to be honest here for a second, Mr. Kehoe, because I know there's a lot of folks right now, and they're going, I don't care about farming. I don't care about agriculture. And I admit, I was one of those when I was younger. It doesn't matter to me. Take a minute and explain to a minute why this matters to everybody that is in their car listening right now.
Well, there's a new statistic out this morning. 4 out of 4 people like to eat. And so we literally feed and clothe the world out of Missouri. And other Midwest states, obviously, that are very agrarian like we are, participate in that. But agriculture is so important because of our over 90,000 families who have family farms across the state. It's the third largest family-owned farm state in the nation. We have a lot of people who rely on farming, and farming, for those who are driving down their car, in agriculture can be anything from what you think, which is planting corn or soybeans and harvesting that product, to raising beef, to raising hogs, to the technology that's around that, producing equipment that would produce those products off of the family farm, the marketing, all of the pieces that go along to getting that product to the grocery store shelf or to the clothes on a rack in a clothing store touches hundreds of thousands of people across the state. So the ripple effect, when you say it's our state's number one industry, the ripple effect is way beyond those family farms. It's to people driving up and down the highways next to you who rely on some piece of that chain of production for their living.
Lieutenant Governor, we appreciate your time, and thanks for the kind words. Always great to have you with us on the program. I know you've been there every day. Tomorrow's something very special that I know is close to your heart. You grew up, but as did I. We both had some tough times growing up. You grew up, your mother, single mom helping you, and we both have had poverty at times in our lives. And there is a Farmers Care food drive that takes place every year. And you look at the people that are collecting the food. A lot of them don't have a whole lot of money themselves. You and I have seen that before. Some of them are children that don't have a lot themselves. You'll be there for the Farmers Care food drive. The food banks right now in Missouri definitely need help. How important is this food drive, and what can you tell us about it?
Well, it's vitally important. Missouri Farmers Care will be helping with FFA kids, 4-H students, PAC, along with the collaboration of our food pantries from Kansas City, Central Missouri, St. Louis, et cetera. Brian, as you know, I think Claudia has been on the Central Missouri Food Bank Board, yes, my wife, for several years. She could tell you hunger is real in our state, and people kind of choose not to always believe that. Tomorrow we'll pack tens of thousands of meals, literally. I think last year we did almost 60,000. We will pre-pack with all these kids, 2 groups, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. They're put together as teams, and they work together to pre-package these various food items that will go to the food banks and be handed out to folks all across our state. It's a great way to tie agriculture into the need, into a charity in this case. And you and I have both been there where we've had to rely on some of that food as a kid, Brian, and I know we've had these stories before. I can tell you from experience, Hunger is something that is bipartisan. It's rural. It's urban. It's something that when you can solve and help solve that problem, you're really doing something that impacts a lot of lives. And so we are so pleased that the State Fair makes it a focus point of a whole day for them. Involves so many. There'll be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of FFA and 4-H students from around the state that will be there packing, and we will put a lot of product out tomorrow, and it's a great opportunity to get people involved.
Thank you.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the fair later this week. And if there was ever a time to visit the fair, I'm looking at highs in the 80s, and I know last year I think we were in the hundreds. So I'm excited to be there. But let's look even more into the future here. What can you tell us about the veto and the special session coming up?
Yeah, the governor and I talked about that. We're talking about it daily, actually, with House and Senate members. Stephanie, you and I both know one thing, and all of you guys know one thing. Government has an insatiable appetite. The more money you put in front of it, the more they'll spend. I'm of the belief that Missourians know how to spend money better than a bureaucrat, and so is the governor. And so what he's proposing, the House did a great job, by the way, of starting this off by saying our revenues are coming in very good here. We had some funny money from the federal government that we probably as conservatives didn't like them printing more of it, but the truth is we had it. We tried to fiduciary spend that the best we could where in places of need from various economic impacts through COVID. But that the bottom line is we're going to have record revenues, and the governor and the House and Senate members want to give that back to Missourians. Now, the way that gets there, the way we go from point A to point B might be different in a few people's minds. But the special session is all about trying to give money back and through a permanent tax cut to Missourians in the governor's mind, and that's what he's working with House and Senate members to find out where that right spot is. Where can we do this where we don't, overdo it, but we need to do the right amount so Missourians can see some real relief, and that's what we're looking for. There's a piece in that tax cut that also has to do with agricultural tax credits. It's a tax credit program that actually has a return on investment, which is unusual with most tax credits. It's called a MASBA tax credit. It works for agricultural, manufacturing, and commodity groups that need this to be competitive in the market. So there's a small piece in that tax bill for special session that deals with agriculture, although an important piece. It exists now, it's existed forever. It just deals with the sunset on that. The big part of special session will be about putting Missourians, giving them money to put back in their pocket so that the government doesn't have it to spend.
Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Anything else you want to add real quick before we let you go?
Well, I would encourage folks to come out to the fair. It's a great day. Yesterday we had Military Appreciation Day. It just warmed your heart to meet these men and women who are active duty and veterans. Met a 98-year-old World War II who was at Normandy Beach, Charlie Bell, married to his wife for 70 years yesterday. I mean, if that's not America, I don't know what is. It's a great showcase.
I got to tell you something that happened on the show Friday, only because producer Hannah's giggling. We were talking about the honor flight that went down this past Friday. And usually it's me, Joe Jr. Joe Biden and I have something in common. We get stuff mixed up all the time. But Hannah said something about a World War I veteran was going to be on this honor flight.
I did.
Yeah. So we got a kick out of an honor that you are appreciative that you would bring this up. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, thanks for joining us, and thanks for your kind words today.
Thank you so much. Hannah at least answered the phone for me this morning, so I got to give her some credit for that. Come to the State Fair, enjoy our agrarian roots, see lots of cool stuff up there, and we appreciate you having me on. Good luck with the show, you guys. I'd love to be on anytime.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Every employee we've spoken to is very clear that this is a cut to what they have and is encouraging them to leave the university.
If this plan, as it is proposed, passes, you're likely to have a large sucking sound of employees leaving this university.
To steal a line, wasn't that H. Ross Perot back in the 90s when he ran for president? Wasn't H. Ross Perot and all that big, all those jobs go to other countries? That big sucking sound, yeah. Folks over the weekend protesting at Mizzou. It was a union, a workers' union, protesting some of the changes. So and it has to do with time off. Let me ask you this. How would you like to get a job where you start off with 4.5 weeks of PTO?
That's insane. That's what they start with?
Starting with 4, and really any job, any length of service, think about that. 4.5 weeks of paid time off. And this is for sports staff. We're not talking professors and things like that. 4.5 weeks, a month and a half, 6 weeks. Anyway, that's a lot of time to start paid off, man.
That is a lot of time.
Especially when we're paying for it.
And now they're protesting.
They're protesting.
You know, yeah, I heard something recently that I thought was really interesting. And they're like, it's the Biden policies that are really causing these issues. And for months, we paid people not to work. People sat at home. They got a check. They didn't have to go to work. They sat on their couch and they got real comfortable. And so now that their money is kind of running out and we're asking people to come back to work. First of all, some people aren't coming back to work. Second of all, the people who are coming back to work, you know what? They're real picky about coming back to work. And here's one instance. You know what? A month and a half of paid time off isn't enough. I need 2 months of paid time off. Where, and they right now, because, as small business owners, we're all struggling for workers, they can be picky. And we see people are having to offer incentives. They're having to pay weekly. They're having bonuses, all of these things that, we're having to dig into our pockets and our bottom line as small business owners to try to incentivize people to just show up for work. And it's affecting everybody here. And it is the number one thing when I'm just talking to my friends and I'm talking to my family. It's the number one thing people are struggling with.
Compare it to, and I'm thinking of let's say Hitachi Energy in Jeff City, hiring, and their big thing right now, benefits day one. Do you get a job at Hitachi Energy? Say, hey, by the way, I get 6.5 weeks of paid time off. That's starting today right now.
Wow.
That makes sense. Coming up, some interesting things happening at some local city council meetings. We're going to do that coming up at 8:10 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning.
But what I will say is the one regret I have is that the public discourse these days is so coarse, not only between the public and their elected representatives, but also on the dais itself, within the city council.
So this is a city councilman outgoing. Well, he's gone now. City councilman in the city of Columbia, he was a 12-year incumbent. And guy was about as woke as he got. Do appreciate his service to city government. Got ousted, and kind of a remarkable story. You know, we see in places like Pierpont and Holt Summit, and places like Sturgeon, and some of our smaller enclaves here in mid-Missouri, and we see tie votes sometimes. But what happened in the city of Columbia, we're talking 4 months ago, remarkable story, city council race, over 2,200 votes cast, 2,200 total, 11. It was a tie vote.
I think it was 3,100. I think it's 1,602. I thought was the tie. Fact check.
Uh-oh.
I thought it was 1,602.
Uh-oh.
It was a lot of votes, and it's really hard, you know.
Yeah.
And what's really sad and, you know, impactful from that is, you know, you tell people every vote counts, and you try to, and in your mind you're like, yeah, every vote counts, but then you get busy and, you know, everything else. And our turnout last primary was horrible. It was horrible. We were in what was the overall percentage?
Like rough, about a fifth, 1/5, 20%, and that's kind of as a whole. I think one of the bright spots. I think it was Howard County here in mid-Missouri that had almost a quarter of their registered voters turned out in the primary.
So that's what you should think about when you're thinking about voting. Imagine there's somebody out there who's friends with Roy Lovelady or Carl Scala who just got busy that day and decided to stay home and feel really guilty right now.
Yeah. By the way, we need to get John Marsh on this to see if we can fact check on what that tally was in the municipal election in April in Columbia.
One of our coworkers here at Zimmer actually lived in that ward and forgot to go vote that day. They realized about 10 minutes before the polls closed that they could go vote, and they just didn't have time to make it there. And the next morning, she was feeling pretty bad.
And you think about this, for example, in Jefferson City, because they're talking about some big issues tonight, at least in my mind, parking. They're talking about some big issues there. But that was Carl Scala. So the vote back in April taught 1,102 votes, and Stephanie's right. One person did not go out and vote. They had a do-over.
Fact check. It is 1,102. Darn it. I thought it was 1,602. Okay.
Wow. Did Stephanie just lose a fact check?
I'm not good at remembering numbers. Brandon's good because back in his day, they had to actually remember phone numbers. You know, I don't have any phone numbers memorized, and I'm terrible with remembering numbers.
Let me tell you something. Stephanie is incredibly smart. One of the smartest, busiest people I know. So the idea that she would misremember something is remarkable for this guy. By the way, my name is Branden Rathert. Nice to meet you. Thanks for checking us out. That is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here. John Marsh is here. Brian Houseworth is here, and we appreciate you being here. You want to get in touch with us, 573-874-9390. We're in the 573 area code. You can call, you can text, 573-874-9390. And sometimes I know a lot of people like to. So what is your opinion on this? That's what we're asking right now, and that's cool, but that's kind of not how we roll here. It's a little bit more low-key. You have a thought on something, you're welcome to call in and be part of the conversation. Let us know what you think. It's kind of like happy hour or having coffee in the morning.
And you overhear something and you got an opinion earlier. Jeff said he's going to vote on parking and raising rates for parking. And you said, you know, what about employees who have to pay for their own parking and it's not provided? And we had some folks, Aaron says, now MU has graduated rates for parking. The more you make, the more you pay. I hadn't heard that. But yeah, when I was a student at Mizzou, I had to pay. And I've been an employee before at the state capitol, had to find my own parking. And most state employees do have their designated lots. But certain, I was interning and I had to find my own parking. And that's part of it. And it's a constant struggle, especially in city centers.
So that's one of the things they're covering tonight. And you think about who sits on the city council in Jefferson City, and in any of those races in years past could have one vote have made the difference. So in this race in city of Columbia, they had a do-over back on August the 2nd, and Roy Lovelady beat out the 12-year incumbent, Carl Scala. And I want to highlight something because this transcends, I think, all politics. I want to tell you something about Roy Lovelady. I only say this because he's brought it up. Carl Scala, he's a Vietnam War veteran. Served the city for 12 years. He's a pretty woke dude. I'm not personally a big fan of his. Roy Lovelady is a black, gay, cross-dressing barber. Yeah.
Yes.
And he's open about it. We've talked about it here on the show. We had a conversation with him after he won because he came on the show a couple of times, and that's kind of when. So don't agree with a lot of that stuff, but it doesn't matter. He deserves to be heard. He came on the show more than once, and we asked him about the stereotype, about him, you know, people in his community, and about him coming on the show. And I want you to hear what he said, because this has nothing, this is not about the city of Columbia, but it's about, I think, politics in general, and I think it's about personal relationships kind of in general, and how we view people and how we treat people. Do you get people, because I want to stereotype here a little bit, I'm guessing the circles you hang out with, they ain't necessarily big fans of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So you hear he's even laughing. He gets it. Like, yeah, it is okay to talk about this stuff. But see, we're honest like that, and that's a beautiful thing. Have you been getting flack since you'd been coming on the show? And it's interesting. So we were asking, okay, so Wake Up Mid-Missouri. People say, well, it's a conservative talk show. It's a talk show. I think most of us are conservative, libertarian, independent. And so I think it's an important question we're asking there. I'm guessing your circles, Mr. Lovelady, ain't kind of jibing with what we do. What kind of feedback are you getting in your neighborhoods?
I wouldn't say I've been getting slack, but they're definitely inquiring about why would I speak on this radio station. But I was like, anybody that's willing to listen and speak and help me to get voters, that's somebody that's listening.
So I love that, because he's talking about people in his community. What were they doing? They were stereotyping. They were judging us as a radio show here in mid-Missouri. He said it. They were judging, and people think that, oh, you judge these people. You judge transgenders and cross-dressers. No, don't judge them. Just don't agree with it.
Well, and he talks about listening, and I think that's a big difference for me right now between conservatives and liberals, because if you have a differing point of view and you're talking to a liberal, they're there to shut you down. They show up to events, they protest, they don't want to hear it. And I think, conservatives, we might have a differing point of view, but we believe in free speech and we believe in a discussion. And what he said about Carl Scala on our show, he said he's the kind of guy that when you ask him a question, he already knows, or he knew the answer before you ever asked it, and basically was saying it wasn't a good listener. And I think whether you're in politics or whether you're in business, I think that's the worst kind of compliment, to be accused of someone who won't even listen to a differing point of view. And I think that's why Roy Lovelady won, because he went to members of his community and people who disagree with him, who might have a different opinion, and he listened. And I think that's why he pulled out the win.
And people listened to what he had to say. They didn't look at the way he dressed. They didn't look at whatever his lifestyle is. They listened to what he would do for them. And I want to give listener Jack some points over the weekend. He wanted to know, Carl Scala, so roll carts are to Columbia as parking is to Jeff City?
Yeah. It's tough to find consensus on the issue.
Roll cart's been just a long, nasty issue, a ridiculous issue, in my opinion, in the city of Columbia. And Carl Scala, he's no longer on the city council. He even said one time, they've been talking about roll carts forever, man. It just can't. The whole trash system in the city of Columbia, it is truly a mess. And Carl Scala even said in the city council meeting one night, see, this is where they kind of admit, these politicians, these progressives, they admit. He said, I've been on this city council for 12 years and haven't. Yep, and that is exactly the problem. Listener Jack suggested that perhaps Carl Scala, since he's not on the city council anymore, might be at the city council meeting tonight talking about roll carts. Jack, gets points because on Fridays we hand out every Friday here on Wake Up Mid Missouri we hand out awards.
Yeah, winners and losers of the week. And so you can text or call us and nominate some folks. We keep a running list and then award that on Fridays.
And we love the local stuff. I mean, it's easy to pick national winners, national losers, but every Friday, 8:35, we pick winners and losers of the week. And I would pick Jack already as one of our winners of the week. We do that on Fridays.
Can I go ahead and pick myself for this 54-63 interchange, because it sounds like it's going to be a mess and I'm going to have a longer commute this week.
So yeah, the 54-63, they're working. MoDOT's going to be working on it. I don't know. They're doing some repaving, and I always get nervous when somebody's, well, we're just shoring up those overpasses. Wait, what do you mean? Showing up? And if you're in your car listening to Wake Up Mid Missouri right now and you're driving on, wait, what do you mean you got to shore up this overpass? All right, want to move forward here because one of the other things that we do on Wake Up Mid Missouri is the Morning Bell. Business news with that little twist from Stephanie Bell's twist only she can give you. Phone number is 573-874-9390, 573-874-9390. So just so you know, this is not a planned phone call. It happens to be the mayor of Jefferson City calling in, Carrie Turgeon. Mayor Turgeon, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What can we do for you?
Good morning. I just wanted to say how great it was to turn on the radio and hear you and Stephanie and hearing what's going on in mid-Missouri. And I just want to officially welcome you on to some morning radio here in mid-Missouri. And we love connecting with Jeff City, Columbia, this entire area. So welcome.
Well, we're excited to be of service to communities in Cole County and in Jefferson City and do something that's local. We feel something had been absent for a long time, and that's something that we really want to do. So Stephanie and I will see you at tonight's city council meeting and to get the keys to the city, okay?
Fantastic. We'll see what it opens. I don't know about that.
Mayor Carrie Turgeon, thank you so much. I think you have made our day, and we appreciate you listening very much. Very cool. We appreciate that. All right, coming up, Morning Bell, business news with a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you have for us this morning?
You know, we haven't talked about my favorite guy in a while. Elon Musk is now telling us how many how many Teslas are on the road.
How many Teslas?
I was happy that they did come out and unseal the documents on the search. And I think it was a step in the right direction, but I think we still have a lot of unanswered questions, and we're going to continue until people understand more.
Well, all I know about the actual materials is what was in that search warrant inventory, but from that alone, you can tell there was a serious risk
So that is Adam Schifferbrains. He is a congressman from California. First guy we heard there, that's Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan. Second guy is Adam Schifferbrains. Well, but you can tell by that he's already handed down the decision. And he's just simply, he's just wrong. Absolutely wrong. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Time for the morning bell. So this is something we do every morning. It's business news that kind of, it hits all of us, or something we all know about. It hits us all one way or the other. And the thing with this is it's not just, don't you love business news and stock numbers? Are this today, this? Seriously, when you're listening to a bunch of numbers being thrown around, stock market reports, I can't digest those numbers for two reasons. Number one, I don't understand them. Number two, I don't hear so good. And number three, what? So that's why we do this business news. Little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Well, I love Elon, and he's been stirring up a lot of trouble lately. But he did come out with some new numbers about how many cars Tesla has produced, and part of this makes me kind of mad. So Tesla has now produced more than 3 million cars, but a third of them in China. Not happy about that, really.
Elon?
Yeah, a third of them in China. I don't love that. But, it's interesting because, driving around mid-Missouri, you used to see a Tesla and it was like seeing a unicorn. You're like, oh, a Tesla. But, up and down 63 now, I see them everywhere. And so they're very popular. But so they have made 3 million cars total. But as a comparison, I think there's a number for Toyota produced 8.5 million vehicles worldwide in 2021. So, still got a long way to go. But I love me some Elon news. And I think it's, so they celebrated because China produced its 1 millionth car. Meanwhile, there's 2 million other Teslas out there.
According to an energy government website, electric vehicle registrations in the state of Missouri, and I don't know if it differentiates, and I think it does differentiate. It's not saying, the hybrids, but straight up pure electric vehicles. State of Missouri, if I'm reading the stats right, less than 10,000 registered electric vehicles. I don't know if that sounds right, but the other thing I ain't real good at is reading graphs.
But I'm seeing more and more, and even I've got a neighbor, and he plugs his car in every night, and I've got lots of friends who are moving to electric vehicles, and and I think it's a real. I mean, again, I don't think I could ever do it. I can barely keep my phone charged, my watch charged, my iPad charged. I would have trouble if I had to wake up and rely on a car that needed to be charged.
And this, I know people get mad at me anytime I mention this. I'm not a fan of electric cars. I love Hummers, man. I love the Hummers, but I'm not buying the new one for two reasons. Number one, it's electric.
Number two, it's $100,000.
But I'm telling you, electric cars, they said, well, it's not going to work. Remember, we said man would never fly, man would never go to outer space, we would never build a bridge over the Missouri River, and we've done all of that, and we think nothing about it. And I'm not a fan of electric cars.
we know that we really are quite behind in terms of maximizing our collective understanding about how we will engage on the technology of today and what we can quickly and easily predict will be the technology over the next decades. So to maintain our position as the United States of America on this issue, it is critical that we work together to understand where we are, to recognize and have the courage to speak truth about what is obsolete, and then to partner to ensure that we are speaking the same language with the same motivation,
Wow.
inspired by the opportunity of it all, but then doing the work of updating how we have been talking and thinking about our exploration in space.
I wish that I could explain that, because that's one of the things we do here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. The news, the analysis, the opinion, and more importantly, how this stuff affects you. I
have no idea what she was talking about. We're updating. We're talking about where we've been. I don't know. I'm lost.
Wow. Welcome to the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Hannah, the producer, is here. Brian Houseworth. John Marsh is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Phone number is 573-874-9390. 573-874-9390. And by the way, one of the things we do here on the show, and you may or may not know, whenever we invite you to call us, it may not always be like, hey, what is your opinion on this? Tell us your thoughts on this. We might get into something that's happening at Mizzou. They've got students saying, and it's weird because my initial reaction was, that is sleazy. What is it that they're doing? And I think I'm in the minority on this, by the way. 573-874-9390. Chris, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Can you decipher what Kamala was trying to tell us here in Mid-Missouri?
No, just more stupid platitudes that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
I always think of that stupid beauty pageant contestant you guys were playing a few years ago about all the peoples and all the worlds and all the whatever. I think they went to the same school, but if you took what she just said, doesn't it just sound like something somebody would stand up and say at a school board meeting or something? We all have to work together, and we all have to get along, and we have to, what's that term they came up with? We have to effort more, which I hated that stupid term. Yeah, I mean, it means absolutely nothing. It's just all, I don't have a plan, but want to make it sound like I'm working on it.
Say a bunch of words that sound fancy. Chris, it is so good to hear from you. We appreciate you checking in here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Clay, what's up, buddy?
Brandon, I thought I was having a stroke about 5 seconds into that clip.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know what was happening.
So, Clay, one of the things you might know about is something Joe Biden and I have in common. I sometimes get confused about stuff, and as I'm listening to that, because Stephanie Bell turned me on to it, as I'm listening to that, I'm going, oh, crap, I'm really stupid again because I don't understand what she's saying. So it wasn't just me.
No, it's going to happen. It's going to take half a day to recover from that.
Clay,
my goodness.
Thank you for checking in here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 573-874-9390. Gerald, you're up to bat.
Hello?
Hello, Gerald. What's up?
Oh, hey, how are you doing? I think we should have her as president because President Xi over in China would say she must be talking in some secret code. I'm scared. He's gonna think that. So we got to send her over there with great long speeches and have him worried because it's some secret code. I think that's our plan.
Gerald, let me ask you this: you ever been, in a relationship and you got in trouble? She's mad at you, and you're trying to explain something that you really you can't explain. You know what I mean?
Kind of. What you want to do is use a lot of words and try and convey a message about something that you might have thought you did but didn't realize you have done it. And there's a lot of time when the clouds are rolling by, when the bus is late, and you need to charge your car. How are you going to get to the donut shop?
Gerald, every Friday here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, every Friday at 8:35, we do winners and losers of the week. And if I remember, I am picking you as a winner of the week here in Mid-Missouri.
We'll know the message by Monday if we start counting the votes on Friday, right?
Kofefe. What's the word? Kamala's comments are way scarier than that weird word Trump made up.
And this is fun and stuff, but it's important because think about this. This woman is another positive COVID test away with Joe from becoming president of the United States. And here's where it really, really matters. Okay? Stephanie and I had said since day one, since the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021, we immediately lost our standing on the worldwide stage. And it wasn't just talking points. It has real consequences to us. These are real things. These things are frightening because it affects all of us. Look at where we were 1 year ago. We had that sloppy pullout in Afghanistan. Look what Joe did. He killed some Americans because he couldn't handle it. He didn't surround himself with good people to handle it. And I'll go to gas prices. People say, well, the gas prices, the president's not responsible. Blah, 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 blah. General Todd Walters, are you tired of hearing this? I don't get tired of this. I really don't.
I mean, it's depressing. I don't know that I would say tired. I'm sad. It's sad to keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and have no solutions going forward.
But if you're a newer, younger listener to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, I think it is important that you hear this and that you tell your friends. So, when you're hanging out today, you say, well, it's not Joe's fault. You go BS because this is General Todd Walters, NATO. He is Supreme Allied Commander addressing a House Armed Services Committee earlier this year. He's being asked about why did Russia invade Ukraine? Because that's what you'll hear the progressives say when they lie to you. Well, gas prices have only been going up since Russia invaded Ukraine. Two things there. Number one, it's a flat-out lie. And you can GTS it. You can Google that and look it up for yourself. We've shown the graphs here on our YouTube channel. By the way, you can watch us on our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. You can go to our YouTube channel and you can watch us there. We've shown the graphs, okay, as facts, saying here's what happened. Tragic events, January 20th, 2021, gas prices were going up. So when these people say, hey, listen, it's not the president's fault, that's just simply not accurate. Well, it's because Russia invaded Ukraine. Okay, well, here's NATO on that.
I think he felt like he had popular support of the citizens of Russia. I also felt like he was attempting to take advantage of fissures that could have appeared in NATO as a result of the post-Afghanistan environment.
So the post-Afghanistan environment 1 year ago right now, one of our kids who lived right to one of our men, I shouldn't say kids, one of our brave, somebody representing the U.S. and the Marines. This kid lived right down I-70 from us in Wentzville. Joe killed that guy because he was ineffectual at his job. So when people say, well, gas prices, they are Biden's fault because of the sloppy pullout from Afghanistan. That's not Stephanie Bell saying that. That's not me saying that. That is NATO. I want to move forward. 874-9390. Tim, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
I just want to wish you all good luck on your new show and really enjoy it. It's smooth and lovely break from what we had before.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it, man. Dude, you have made our day. Because, listen, and I want to stop down here for a second and because, listen, I want to say something if you're a newer listener. I remember as a kid, man, I had a favorite show. And it was Stephen D.C. on this top 40 station in St. Louis. And whenever they changed that show, and then there was Smash on a legendary rock station in St. Louis. It was the first rock station west of the Mississippi. And when they took Smash off the air, I was like, Oh, man. And it sucks because I get it. You get a relationship with your morning show on the radio. You get into this routine, and then it changes, and it's not fun. But I'll tell you this, and I hope that this is your experience, Tim. That radio station, that rock radio station in St. Louis, when they replaced Smash, they replaced it with something far superior and far more entertaining and far more important. And we hope that that's your experience. You have made our day.
Well, and it means a lot to me. Growing up in Jefferson City, I became really familiar with a name that everybody knows, Warren Kretsch.
Yeah.
And we only had one bathroom, one shower growing up in Jefferson City. So my parents had control over the radio station, and I listened to him growing up, loved him, really familiar. And I know he, everyone in Jeff City is familiar with him. So to actually be on a station that he spent so many years on really means a lot to me.
And John, thank you so much, man. We appreciate your phone call. And John Marsh, he is part of the show. He's just really busy with other news stuff this morning. So please know John Marsh, who, my God, this guy's a legend.
Yeah.
He really, just a legend. He is still here. And I know you haven't heard a whole lot of him this morning. Brian Houseworth is still here. Producer Hannah is still here. So all of these things are still happening. It's just right now it's just a little different. So I'm going to ask you for a favor, and I know I don't know you. I'm going to ask you for a favor and just ask for some patience. All right. James, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What can we do for you?
Good morning, and I don't have any gripes about the old show. I enjoyed it, but this is the first time listening to your show, so I'll give it a try.
Well, thank you.
Hey, I'm a Reagan Republican, and a shout-out to John Marsh. You had Mike Kehoe on earlier, and I'm a little, I take a kind of offended that he said Mike Parsons wants to give money back to Missourians. Mm-hmm. Well, he signed the gas tax last year. I don't know that that's giving money back to the Missourians. And then he vetoed the tax thing earlier this year. He vetoed it, refund to taxpayers. And Mike Kehoe wanted a bigger gas tax a few years ago. So I'm a little amused but offended by those comments. Part of the reason we're paying higher gas prices, most of it's Biden, but a little bit is the gas tax here in Missouri.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. 2.5-cent gas tax that went into effect back in October. James, I hear what you're saying.
The tax and spend Republican. He is a tax and spend Republican.
Hey, man, thank you for being a part of it. And I appreciate you taking time out of your day to call.
All right, thanks for taking my call.
Hey, you bet, man. Anytime. 874-9390. 874-9390.
Now, John Marsh is really busy this morning, but he did have time to pop into the studio just now. And he said, so does legend mean old? Is that what you're trying to say?
Marsh, you're on to us, buddy. Coming up, 5 minutes from now, maybe we'll do a little pole dancing. And pole dancing.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers on 93.9 The Eagle. Enjoy.
All right, leftovers, something we do every morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Just some of the things that we did not get to on the show, but we wanted to make sure that we covered those. I'm Branden Rathert, producer Hannah, Brian Houseworth, John Marsh. I love John's sense of humor this morning. John is part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I love his sense of humor. We're talking about John Marsh is just a legendary all across the board, the number of awards that this guy has won over the years, and I love his sense of humor. He says, hey, man, when you guys say legendary, do you mean old? No, we truly do mean legendary when it comes to covering things that affect us right here in Mid-Missouri. What do you got for leftovers, Steph?
Well, a big appointment right here in Mid-Missouri. The governor has appointed former Columbia Mayor Brian Treese to the State Highways and Transportation Commission. Brian's got a great article up on the Eagle website, and it basically says, or he talked to Senator Rowden, and when those appointments come up, you're supposed to be sponsored by your local senator, and Senator Rowden said he will support or sponsor Mr. Treese's nomination and adds he will do a great job.
You know, I have some respect for the former mayor of Columbia. He's now in the private sector. He's a lobbyist, too. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite, and you'll remember this story, one of my favorite dealings with Brian Treese, and we've had differences of opinions over the year, which is okay. And then with what the city, I don't know if you know what they did with the city of Columbia, and this is not all at the feet of the mayor, Brian Treese. It was more on the director of health. They said, well, you know, COVID ruined businesses. COVID did not ruin businesses. It was officials that put limitations on business. They ruined businesses. It was not COVID. It was government officials. Brian Houseworth, Brian Treese, and Brian Houseworth did not have anything to do with that either. And we had some interesting exchanges over the years. One of my favorite unfolded in the Capitol one day.
Yeah, you and I bumped into him, and he looked you straight in the face and said, I hope your co-host has a more open mind than you.
So I saw him in what I like to call the snake pit, and it's kind of where it's a snake pit, in my opinion. It's where a lot of the lobbyists hang out and they wait. They're like vultures if you've ever been there. And I'm not demeaning the integrity of any lobbyist, but it really is. If you ever go to the Capitol and wait, it's almost like you can hear the bzzz.
If you're the client and you're paying them to be there to find a legislator and they're hanging in the break room, you'd be mad. They're there because that's where the legislators are and they're trying to grab them.
So that's where, and he was serving as mayor of Columbia at the same time, and he was there, and I said, hey, Mayor Treese, good to see you. And I said, Stephanie Bell, and he looks at me, and he looks at Stephanie and says, yeah, I said something to the effect, I hope you've got more of an open mind than this guy does. and I've always appreciated that, because you know what? That's hopefully one of the things that if you don't already know about us, you will learn. That's cool. We love that kind of stuff. We may not get along. We might have some exchanges from time to time that doesn't, but it's not an absolute. It doesn't mean we can't get along.
And he had a good sense of humor. And, the new mayor, Mayor Buffalo, I don't agree with her on a lot of issues, but she's got a good sense of humor, too. I like her.
Hey, man, seriously, thank you for being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri today. Guess what's happening next? It's the Gary Nolan Show. See ya.
Bye.